Welcome in everybody to Play Like a Jet Live, brought to you by U Stadium. As always, we're your hosts, Luke and Clay. Clay, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I have the week off right now. I'm transitioning jobs as we speak, so it's been a nice, relaxing Wednesday.
Very good. I love it. So what we're going to have for you today, guys, great show. We've got DJ Bianami coming on. It's going to be fantastic to hear his thoughts on the Green Bay practice, wrapping up the Jets-Giants game and all of those kind of things. He's going to be with us in just a moment. If you have any questions for DJ or for myself and Clay, make sure you drop a comment, whether you're watching on Twitch or on Periscope or YouTube or wherever you're finding us. So thanks for joining in. Play Like a Jet on U Stadium. What I wanted to touch on briefly before DJ got here, Clay, was the top 100 list, the NFL top 100, which dropped just a couple of days ago. And there was actually a Jet on there. Well, not a Jet at the time of him making the list, but Corey Davis came in, I think, at 94, I believe. What were your thoughts on Corey Davis, and do you think he's the guy that should have been on the list out of all the Jets players?
Well, starting with that last part, I think if one Jet player was going to be on, it would be Quinn Williams, just because he was so dominant when he was on the field last year. He actually started playing like that number 3 overall pick. But he wasn't on the list. Corey Davis was. He was with Tennessee last year, obviously, and we brought him in. He's going to be our top receiver. I'm almost positive he's going to be our top receiver this year. And I think he deserves recognition. Let's just say that. I don't know if he deserves top 100, but he deserves recognition for what he did last year. He showed up. He was a top 5 pick in 2017. Kind of struggled the first few years, and then last year was his 4th season in the league, and he turned it up a notch. Didn't even reach 1,000 yards, and he still got on the top 100 list, which shows people actually do respect his game, in that maybe he could have done even more if the offense was more of a passing offense. But obviously, as we all know, Tennessee runs, no pun intended, runs through Derrick Henry. So I think he might have a chance to finally crack that 1,000 yard mark with the Jets this year, and I'm excited. It's nice to even have a player on that list. I mean, Jamal Adams was like the only player we had on that top 100. I know a lot of people give it a lot of slack because it's not a very good list, but it's still nice to see your players on there. And even though he wasn't with the Jets last year, it's still nice to see a New York Jet on that list.
Yeah, you just touched on it, Clay. I think it's an interesting list when you actually dive into it and who's watching film and what the NFL players think of other players. I think from my perspective, and I talked to DJ about this through the week, I think you see a lot of people getting voted on the list based on reputation and what they've done in the league, and they've earned their dues. I think that's kind of how it goes. But as we talked about off air, it's kind of cool hearing them actually speak about and talk about some of the players and what they think about their games. That is the good part of the NFL 100 list.
Yeah, and I think you're right, but you're also like, James Robinson got on that list. And I don't really know if he's like a big name, like outside of like obviously big football fans and fantasy football players. James Robinson, I feel like, is not a very well-known name in the NFL community. And I believe he was if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in the 70s. I could be wrong. I'm not positive, but I think he was in the 70s. So the fact that he actually got up there, and we still haven't seen Quinnen. I mean, they got all the way down to 40, and Quinn Williams is not on that list. I'm still holding out hope that he's somehow up there, because I think he deserves his recognition too. And I'm going to keep hitting on that. But yeah, it's just an interesting list. I like hearing the players comment on the other players and just kind of, I don't know, just talk up some players that you wouldn't really think about. Like, you'll see like a Ravens player talk up an Eagles player, and it's just like, I don't know, it's pretty cool to hear those things sometimes.
Yeah, it is cool. And something else is cool is if you guys supported us here at Play Like a Jet and U Stadium, make sure if you're enjoying our content, what Clay, myself, and the entire U Stadium team are doing, you're sending us super stickers, you can donate, all those kind of things that help us out, help us get bigger and better. Every single Saturday or Sunday when the season starts, we'll be doing pre-game and post-game shows, so you can jump on with us. We'll break down and recap what we saw out of the guys. We jumped on after the Giants win on live with U Stadium, so that's where you can find us. I'd assume this week with the 4:25 start, I think the game starts this week, you'll catch us probably somewhere around 8 p.m., 7:30 in that vicinity Eastern time. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you're checking us out every single Wednesday night. But Clay, I guess before we go any further, the topic that we're going to hit with DJ first is going to be this Green Bay practice today. Everyone ran away with it. It's a huge news. It's a huge topic. But at the end of the day, without going too deep into it, this is just a practice in August. And even though it's against someone else, it's just not that big a deal, is it?
No, it means nothing at the end of the day. I mean, there was a tweet that I saw. It was a picture of the box score of when Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning went off against each other in preseason, and the Chargers dominate. I think it was like 33-3. Chargers beat the Colts, and obviously, which meant Ryan Leaf played better than Peyton Manning.
Yep.
How did that turn out?
Fame.
I mean, you tell me. I'm not too sure, but I'm almost positive that Ryan Leaf did not pan out. And Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So, I mean, honestly, though, like it doesn't affect my opinion on any player whatsoever. I mean, we've already hit on it on the last few shows. It's practice is practice, and take it from AI. We're talking about practice. Like it's all it is. We're not talking about the game. We're talking about practice. So, I mean, yes, you would like to see your players or your team's players perform well, just because it's nice. It's nice to see those things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't result in wins and losses. It doesn't result in a player being a bust or a Hall of Famer. It's literally just practice, and that's all I can really say about that.
I think Jets fans at least have got a little more context now that we've seen a preseason game. If this happened before preseason game 1, I think it would have just been an absolute mess, and people would have been panicking about the offensive line and Zach Wilson and everything to do with the Jets' failures today, so-called failures. But I think after seeing the team put together what looked like actual NFL football last week for the first time in nearly 2 years, I think that kind of calmed everyone's nerves, and that's definitely the saving grace for us, so we don't have to talk too much about this practice.
Yeah, because, I mean, going into that preseason game, Jets, not every Jets fan, obviously, but there were Jets fans that were already calling Zach Wilson a bust because of how he performed in a green and white scrimmage. Yeah. Not even a preseason game, a green and white scrimmage, and he didn't perform well, which is fine. And people were calling him a bust. And now we're a couple weeks later, and the first preseason game, a lot of people were saying, outside of PFT, which is – don't even get me started with that. But outside of PFT, everyone was saying that Zach Wilson was maybe the top rookie performer or quarterback performer last week. So, I mean, I can't wait to get out of August and into September, because these days mean nothing to me. It's just good to see and talk about football. That's all it is. But like, people just take something and run with it way too far, and I'm over it. I can't wait for September.
All right, let's run with something else way too far. I know you might not have seen every snap, but what did you think of the rookie quarterbacks in general on Saturday, and on a couple played on Friday, I believe, your time? Where would you rank them and shuffle them? Because Tim Jenkins, who was on Play Like a Jet yesterday, who's going to have a weekly segment, he does incredible content for the Broncos and all quarterbacks. He said Zach Wilson was number 1. Chris Sims, who, whether you love him, hate him, somewhere in between, he has been the most accurate person as far as quarterback rankings and ratings in the draft the last 4 or 5 seasons. So did you think Zach Wilson was the best, and how would you kind of shake them out when you structure them and order them 1 to 5?
Well, I've only seen highlights.
Okay, fair.
All the quarterbacks. And obviously, as you know, highlights are highlights. Those show the best plays of each of the players. So I can't really go into too much depth about how I thought everyone did. Obviously, I watched every snap of Wilson, but the other guys, it was just highlights. Like, I saw Trey Lance's 80-yard touchdown that he threw on a rope 40 yards down the field. I saw Trevor Lawrence's nice pass over the defender where Marvin Jones made an incredible catch. I saw Justin Fields' 2 touchdowns. The touchdown, obviously, like that's where – no, I'm going to get into this. This is where people that just look at the box score, they can just stay out of my mentions.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear from you whatsoever, because if you look at the box score, Justin Fields had an incredible game, and I'm sure he played well. But the passing touchdown was wide open. Like, it was just, I believe it was just a boot to the right, and the tight end was all by himself on the left side of the field. So that I could have completed that pass if I had the arm strength. And then I know the rushing touchdown, it wasn't a designed run, but again, it was pretty easy for him. I know he had to lower the shoulder at the goal line, but fairly simple for him. He's a very, very talented athlete. So, I mean, I just know the box score scouting and people just saying like, oh, he scored 2 touchdowns, he's amazing. Zach Wilson didn't even have 70 yards. He sucks. Like, you people just please stay out of my mentions. I'm just going to ask nicely. But no, I mean, that's all I can really go into with those quarterbacks. But I'm assuming you watch them a little more. So tell me your thoughts on them.
I thought Zach Wilson, without being too biased, I really like what Chris Sims said. It looked the most like an NFL game. There were in-structure plays. It was from the pocket. It was winning on third down. It wasn't, let's just scheme open a wide open play and throw it over the top. It wasn't, play action pass. You could tell the Jets went out there with a very vanilla game plan and played extremely well. The reason that the PFF grades of someone like Justin Fields or Trey Lance don't look great is just because they had turnover-worthy throws and there's such a small sample size, so that obviously dilutes and affects the numbers. But I thought the other four guys were all really good as well. I don't think there was much between Wilson and, say, Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence, but I thought Wilson was fantastic. And Tim Jenkins hit on it on a YouTube clip he put up last night. He just mentioned that his ability to diagnose pre-snap and understand that if I get a man coverage, I'm hitting this route, but if I've got zone and the corner bumps, then I'm going to look at this side of the field. They're the little things that I think you don't notice. And people say, Zach Wilson just threw a slant on 2nd and 8. Who cares? Anyone could do that. But it's a little nuances and ability to win pre-snap. That's what I saw from Zach Wilson.
Yeah, when you're watching the games, when I watch the Jets games, I'm watching as a fan. I'm not trying to diagnose anything. I just want to watch football. I try to separate the two. If I want to watch tape, then I'll go back and watch it another time. But when I'm watching, on this instance, Saturday night or in the season, Sunday at 1 p.m., I'm watching the game. I'm not trying to do all that crazy stuff. So when I did go back and see Tim Jenkins kind of do it for me, and I could just listen to his feedback, and it's really interesting to see what Wilson was actually doing. It was like you said, it was a quick slant, but it was so much more than that. He was diagnosing what the defense was giving him and where he had to go in that instance because they were in. I believe the play you were talking about, they did run a zone. They did run a zone, and he had to go to the slant. Whereas if they were playing man, he would have gone to the slot fade. So it's very interesting to see that kind of stuff. And if he's able to diagnose a defense pre-snap, I mean, that's going to take him really far in his rookie year because he's only going to improve on that. Because we know he has the physical talent. It's just the mental talent, the mental capability is, I feel like that's the biggest hurdle for a rookie quarterback. So it's very encouraging to see week 1 of preseason. Oh, you're muted.
Starting a streak. I'm trying to be muted for at least 6 seconds in every show, so that's good. We've covered today. Let's hit quickly on the game from Saturday night. I know we already talked about it on the post-game show live with you stadium that we already mentioned, but what were your main takeaways? I think still for me, Clay, it's the linebacking group. It was Javelin Guidry, and it was Zach Wilson and Corey Davis. Which one of those or something else really stood out to you as the takeaway from the Jets-Giants game?
I'll go with the young defensive guys. Just starting off with Bryce Huff, and he had the first sack of the game. It was very encouraging just because we have Carl Lawson. We know what he can bring to the table, but we know we're just going to have a rotation of bodies at that other defensive end position. John Franklin Myers, Bryce Huff, Vinny Curry when he's healthy, maybe Ronald Blair if he makes the team, and I'm sure there's a couple other guys. But having a guy like Bryce Huff, who's on a very cheap deal as a UDFA, he's going into year 2, and if he can play that third down rusher position, I mean that can bring a huge element to this team because obviously Quinn Williams, he's coming back. I mean Sheldon Rankins, he's a very solid pass rusher from the interior. You can move John Franklin Myers inside if you want to, and he's obviously we know what he can do on the inside. So yeah, and starting off with Bryce Huff, I was very encouraged in what he did with. I believe he ended with 2 sacks or maybe 1.5 sacks. Hamilcar Rashid, he had a sack and a half on Saturday night. Jonathan Marshall, he had a couple. You hit on the linebackers, Nasruddin and Sherwood. They both made some big plays. Guidry had a nice pass breakup on a 3rd and short that resulted in a 4th down where they forced a punt. Eccles had I know he had a defensive pass interference, but he also had a nice PBU on a deep pass, keeping up. He pretty much ran the route for the receiver, and he was pretty much acting as the receiver on that play. So seeing the young defensive guys have a good game, granted against mostly backups. Not many starters played for the Giants offense or defensively, but regardless, it's still good to see them do it against this competition and under the lights.
I think even more impressive about Eccles' play, Robert Suller said after the game that he actually wasn't supposed to be there. It was a busted coverage, and he got back and still covered that ground and broke up that pass. I think it was a cover 2 look, and someone was in the wrong position and lost their assignment. So a really impressive performance by him. Clay, after the game, the Jets obviously had to make some cuts. They had to lose 4 or 5 roster spots, and you got your wish. Your guy, number 35, Austin Walters, he was cut. You had Michael Dwumfor, who was also cut. Both of those guys, incidentally, have cleared waivers and have gone on the Jets injury list. So they're on IR now. So they've cleared and are staying with the Jets. Chris the kicker was gone as well. Were there any surprises? Was there anyone you thought might be cut that wasn't? What was your overall thoughts on the first cut down for the Jets?
So I would say Dwumfor, I guess, was a bit of a surprise. This is solely based off of what he did in the game on Saturday. Not like he flashed or had a crazy good game or anything, but he played relatively well. And I didn't think he would have been one of the first 5 to be cut. Granted, we didn't cut 5. We moved Cam Clark to the IR. So I guess we technically only released 4 players. But true. Sorry. But sorry, that just threw me off. No, I'll have to reach out. But what was I saying?
Dwumfor, some of the surprises with the cuts.
Yes, Dwumfor, I was a little bit surprised about. But I didn't see that they actually went on IR. So I know that he got hurt at some point in that game. I didn't know what the injury was. I don't even think it was really announced. So that's, now that you say that, it's not really too surprising. Walters, I didn't know he got hurt, but his play was very frustrating, even though he was, I guess, he's technically the 5th stringer at that position, maybe even the 6th stringer behind Josh Adams too. So no, I mean, outside of that, it's not too surprising. I didn't think there would be many surprising cuts around the league this past week, just because it was only going from 90 to 85. And then this upcoming week, we'll be going from 85 to 80. And then the week after that, that's when we're going to have some interesting cuts, because that's when we go down from 80 to 53.
Yeah, it's funny because both of us were talking about guys we thought might get cut, and I was listing some bigger names. And then I went back and looked at the actual roster and some of the guys' names that were on the Jets 90-man squad, and I literally didn't know who 3 of the players were. And I was like, okay, there's a pretty good chance Kenny Yeboah survives despite having a quiet camp, just because when you put it into context, then you understand that there are guys, at the safety position. There was a backup center whose name escapes me now, who I literally hadn't heard of or didn't know anything about, that they're on the roster. So that kind of put it in context. But Cam Clark was also put on IR, so he won't be with the Jets for the start of the season. It sounds like he was another person that was taken off the active roster. So all those players, sans Chris the kicker, are still with the Jets. They're still on the Jets IR. They just won't be active players to start the season.
Yeah, and I will say too, Chris the kicker, I was, I guess, a little surprised about that. I know he hasn't had the greatest camp, but and he missed terribly on a 53-yarder. But I thought they would have kept him around just for more competition. And maybe if they released him, maybe they cut instead of, like I said, they didn't cut 5 guys. But instead of going down to 85, maybe they went down to 84 and brought in another kicker to have that competition with Amendola. As we mentioned, on Saturday with Scott, Borregales from Tampa Bay, he still is a possibility. I'm still holding out hope that we can get him. If Amendola doesn't work out, Amendola is going to have some opportunities to kick this upcoming week as the only kicker. So hopefully he can run away with the job. But I'd say Chris the kicker, I was a little surprised about, and actually Bennett Jackson, because we don't have a lot of bodies at the safety position right now. And Lamarcus Joyner, I know he was only out today with precaution. It wasn't anything serious, but we don't have a lot of bodies at safety. And I know Joe Douglas brought him in for last season, and I guess I was just a little surprised about that. I would have thought that he would be I thought he would have a chance to make the team as the 4th safety. But that, I guess, it still remains to be seen as what they want to do there. I guess Neesmith is someone that they like, if I may be saying the last name right.
I think it's Neesman or something like that, is it? I can never remember his name.
I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. But yeah, I guess I was a little surprised about that, just purely based on the lack of bodies that we have at the safety position right now. Because, like I said, Joyner's out right now. Ashton Davis isn't practicing. Marcus Bay, obviously, he's really the only other guy that's going to get serious playing time this year that's actually practicing.
Yeah, you're right. The safety position is really thin, and outside of the top 4 or 5 guys, so's linebacker. And they're typically the spots on the roster where you're getting a lot of your special teamers from. And the Jets aren't going to have that luxury. Obviously, they have a really good corner play in Justin Hardy, who's going to be exclusively playing in special teams. But it's going to be interesting to see how Brant Boyer pieces together this special teams unit, because you're not going to have 5 safeties on the roster. You're not going to have 6 or 7 linebackers. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays. We saw Denzel Mims playing on special teams as a gunner. It's going to be intriguing. And the other thing I thought about, Clay, talking about special teams, what if the Jets decide that they want Keelan Cole to be that 4th receiver and he doesn't end up starting, and they use him as the starting punt returner? What does that do to Braxton Berrios' spot on the roster if they like Vincent Smith more?
Wait, so which one are you talking about, Vincent Smith or Keelan Cole?
Well, what if they have Cole return punts, and that means that Berrios isn't the punt returner anymore? Do you keep Berrios over Vincent Smith, knowing that you've already got Elijah Moore and Crowder?
Honestly, at that point, it'd be tough to cut Vincent Smith over Berrios, because, I mean, as we know, Berrios, I guess he can be fun. He's limited. He's very limited offensively. He's a slot receiver. He's not going to play on the outside. He's not going to beat you deep. He's not like that speedy guy. He's pretty much a pure slot receiver in the NFL. And if he's not the punt returner, then what does he really provide to the team? Because we already have a bunch of players that can play at the slot already. So whereas Vincent Smith, as we know, and we just saw it on Saturday, he had an incredible play on special teams, saving a touchback and getting the ball down at maybe inside the 3-yard line. I don't even know where
it was at the 1. Yeah.
What's going on, Frankie? But so I mean, Vincent Smith over Braxton Berrios is a very real possibility, especially if Berrios is unhealthy. I mean, he didn't play on Saturday, and I don't know what the plan is for him this upcoming Saturday, but the more he's hurt, the more likely it is that Vincent Smith actually does take that last spot. So who are the receivers? So we obviously have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, Keelan Cole, Jameson Crowder, and then you think Vincent Smith as a 6th?
Yeah, I think it's all going to be if Cole starts and they see him as their 3rd receiver, because if they do, I doubt they're going to want him returning punts as well. But if they don't and Denzel Mims shows out, or they think Crowder from the slot, Elijah Moore on the outside, I think that's a real possibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if they did like Cole as a starting receiver, excuse me, and then still had him as a punt returner, just because they do have the depth, and they do still have Denzel Mims. They do still have Jameson Crowder, Corey Davis, and Elijah Moore. And then it seems like they do actually like Vincent Smith, even just a little bit as a receiver, which, I mean, he'll have some, he'll shine every now and again, but like he's obviously last year, he wasn't anyone that you wanted to see out there consistently, but if he's the 6th receiver, and then if Cole got hurt on punt returns, then he's the 5th receiver, and he still won't really see the field all that much. So I honestly, I think that might be the route they may be going towards.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see how it works out and what the next couple of cut downs look like, because the receiver position, for once, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is actually a deep position for the Jets. They have an abundance of talent, maybe not the high-end talent, but they've got a lot of really good wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 types. So we're going to be joined by DJ Bienemy. If you're watching, I think he's on Green Bay time. He's up in Wisconsin right now. He was at the Green Bay Jets practice today. So if you're listening, jump on Twitter, hit him up, tell him to jump back in the stream, because we haven't seen him yet. So DJ will be with us shortly. Clay, a couple of other interesting things that happened over the last couple of days and the last couple of weeks has been the dynamic of the offensive line. And I wanted to touch on that because the O-line played great. They played really, really well on Saturday night. Becton and Moses played well. The second stringers played well. The third stringers played well. I don't think the Jets had 1 sack when Mike White got hit on the elbow. I think that was it. But they've been getting torched by Carl Lawson all offseason. They reportedly, and DJ will tell us more, they really struggled against the Packers today, and the Smith brothers kind of beat them up. So do you think the Jets are fine based on what we saw on Saturday night, or do you think the practice is more telling? Which is more important here?
I mean, it's obviously not encouraging to see. We thought that Becton would take a step forward, which he still can. I mean, Carl Lawson's a very good defensive lineman. And usually in practice situations, the defensive end is going to get the better of the offensive tackle, especially in one-on-one one-on-ones without pads and all that. Like, they're going to get the better of the offensive linemen. Like, I've seen it happen over and over and over again in Mobile, and that's what everyone would tell me in Mobile, Alabama, for the Senior Bowl. So I guess it's not the end of the world. I mean, I would say if Jabari Zuniga was beating Mekhi Becton every now and again, then I'd be a little more concerned. But no, it's like I said, it's not ideal, but it's practice. It's not the end of the world. And these are good defensive ends that are beating the offensive line. They're not bad players. The Smith brothers and Carl Lawson are all very good in this league. I'd be most. I mean, because Dan Feeney just isn't. He's just not it. He's not it. We already know that we're not the biggest fans of Van Roten, but he did have a good game on Saturday. So, and we'll see how he is. And then McGovern again, he also had a good game on Saturday night. So I really do think we're going to be okay. It's just obviously not everything can be perfect. We just got to remember that we are a rebuilding team. We won 2 games for a reason. There are going to be some bumps in the road, but we just got to keep going through it. We got to let these young guys play. Mekhi Becton's only 22 years old. I remember. I mean, I know you came to the Jets fandom a little after his career started, but DeBrickashaw Ferguson, he wasn't that great his first year. And if I remember correctly, he wasn't too great his second year either. He started getting better, but it wasn't like anything special. And then it was kind of after that, that's when he started taking that jump into that Pro Bowl range type offensive tackle. So sometimes it just takes time. I mean, I know everyone's just like, what have you done for me lately? And when I say that, I mean, like, literally they care about what you've done in practice. And if you suck in practice, you suck in the league. Yeah. So, I know that's the world we live in, and I still struggle with that, but we got to just put it to the side for just a second and let these guys play. Let them learn from their mistakes, because like who made that comment? Kyle Wilson. Before we even hopped on, thank you for joining, Kyle. I didn't know, not the finger wagging cornerback. I don't think that's him. That'd be interesting, but iron sharpens iron. Good for the Jets to get this work in. So I think that's what we're seeing with Mekhi Becton, mainly Mekhi Becton, because it seems like he's the one that's getting. Sorry, my dog just fell. He's the one that's getting beat. So, I think that's really what it is more than anything else.
Yeah, and it's exciting because Elijah Vera Tucker is close to coming back. He was back in pads today. He did some individuals. He wasn't in team drills, but that's going to help Mekhi Becton as well. Obviously not in one-on-one drills at practice and training camp, but getting him back rather than having Dan Feeney next to you who got pushed back and stomped over. It's funny. I think people got so carried away with loving Dan Feeney's mullet and how he was, on fire at the Islanders game that they forgot he's a terrible football player. And look, I'm sorry, Dan, that was pretty harsh. But, we love a character and you fall in love with these guys. But Elijah Vera Tucker was drafted so highly for a reason. And that reason is because he is an extremely good football player and he's going to improve everyone around him. Clay, let's stay on that for a second, because the Elijah Vera Tucker trade was something the Jets got pretty roasted for in the analytics community. But you've got Tevin Jenkins, who I love. I love Tevin Jenkins, but he's injured with a back injury. They don't know what's wrong with Christian Darrisaw. Kellen Mond, who the Vikings took with the other pick, is injured and isn't playing well, and that's not going well either. Looks like the Jets are doing pretty well early. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but this is why you make the move, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, the three names that have been thrown around with this trade, Vera Tucker, Darrisaw, and Jenkins, all of them have been hurt. Not a single one has been healthy. So that's not ideal for anyone. But it seems like Vera Tucker has the least to worry about with his injury. So, I mean, right now it seems like the Jets won the trade, and I don't even like saying that because I don't think anyone won the trade. I think it was just a trade they wanted to make. They had him as a top 10 player, and I really do think he's going to show why they made this trade once he's actually on the field. I hope Jenkins gets healthy, and I hope he kills it in Chicago. And I like Darrisaw too. And I honestly don't care if Darrisaw is a better player than Vera Tucker down the road. I really don't. If Vera Tucker's good and shows why he was a 14th overall pick, that's all that should matter. I don't care about how good Darisaw is and how good those third round picks. Oh, well, let's just get this straight. Kellen Mond is not going to I don't care what Sean King says, which we haven't even mentioned on this podcast yet. Which maybe we can get into that another time. But yeah, I'm obviously Kellen Mond's not going to do anything, and Wyatt Davis, and we'll see what happens there. But no, I think once Vera Tucker steps on the field and he's healthy, I think one, that's going to shore up the interior line, and two, that's going to make Becton even better. So even if you're concerned about him a little bit, having a guy like Feeney next to him does not help his mental state on that field.
No.
Having a guy like Vera Tucker and what he's capable of next to him, side by side, that's something that can be like, all right, I don't even have to worry about my right side. Like, my boys got it. Like, let me just stay out here on my island and just go to work. And we know what Becton can do when he puts his mind to it and goes to work.
Yeah, and I think, look, Mekhi Becton played really well on the weekend. So I know I made a funny video on Play Like a Jets YouTube talking about how the Giants fans were reacting about Azeez Ojulari getting 3-on-1 rushing play, where he actually still threw him 3 yards to the left, but then he kind of recovered and came back and made the play. Yeah. But look, Mekhi Becton was fantastic in pass pro. He didn't allow a pressure on his 9 pass dropbacks. There were about 5 or 6 true pass sets in there. So look, Becton's going to be fine. And the other thing on this trade is, I think it's important to remember that when we go through the draft process, these NFL teams know more than we do. You know, it's so easy to sit there and tweet like, man, how come Tevin Jenkins hasn't been drafted yet? What's going on? But, you know, you just have to remember that these guys know about injury histories and they know more than we do. So even though we get carried away, there's always a reason for it.
Yeah. And like, people got to remember too, if it was as easy as you think it is, you'd be a GM. Yeah. I'd be a GM if I thought it was easy. Like, it's obviously not. Otherwise, you'd never see any firings. Yes, Salman or Salmon. I'm thinking it's Salman. Yeah, and Joe we trust. Like, I really do trust him. And every decision he's made, maybe not every decision, but most the decisions that he's made, I trust him, and I think he's going to get this team on track. He's going to follow the Ozzie Newsome, system and build through the draft. And he's not going to be McCagnon trying to do the draft in free agency. He's not going to be Tannenbaum trying to make the headlines. He's going to build through the draft the correct way. And I think we're going to get a sustained winner. I know I'm kind of getting off track with where we originally started, but no, I saw it in Joey Trust, and I just wanted to kind of dive into that for a second.
Yeah, completely fair. Let's dive into training now. Training camp against the Packers. They'll be training against them again tomorrow. Look, DJ might not make it today, so we'll have to excuse him for that. But we've spoken to some people. I know Chris Nimbley was there. Andy Vasquez was there. Some guys to do some work with us for Play Like a Jet. And first off the bat, it sounded like, as we mentioned, the O-line struggled. But despite that, Zach Wilson didn't turn the ball over. And DJ actually said, Clay, that he was impressed by Zach Wilson's arm, but Aaron Rodgers was like next level. So it must have been a cool experience for Zach Wilson, who has idolized Aaron Rodgers for the last 10 years, to practice with him, to train with him, and to pick his brain. That must have been an awesome experience for Zach Wilson.
Absolutely. I mean, he even said today that he kind of fanboyed a little bit. maybe not as much as James Morgan, but no, I mean, he was a fanboy. And you got to remember, so let's see, Aaron Rodgers was drafted in 2005, right? So that was 16 years ago. Zach Wilson was 6 years old, 16 years ago. So, I mean, he obviously grew up watching him throughout his whole life. And he obviously plays a lot like him. So, I think obviously, as you can see here, they spoke for a little while today. And it's exciting to see. He can kind of pick his brain a little bit. I'm sure Rodgers isn't going to hold anything back. He's not holding his job away from Wilson. He actually might be more willing to help out Wilson than Jordan Love. But no, it's good for him. It's good to talk to these quarterbacks and get this kind of have this opportunity. I don't think the Jets have really had a scrimmage practice with another team before.
Yeah, 2017 or 18 was the last time they had a live scrimmage. So as Nick said, it was just flashed on screen. It's good to see them out there doing a live scrimmage again. Obviously, the relationship between Yeah, between the LaFleurs and Salah, obviously that pre-existing relationship is there. There's a great culture. So it's a great opportunity for the Jets, who are a 2-win team in 2020, to go out against a Super Bowl contender and train against them for 2 days. It's just a fantastic opportunity for them to get better. Iron sharpens iron, learning experiences, teaching tape, and going against another defense and offense. It's huge for them.
Yeah, and like the Packers, obviously, like you just said, they're Super Bowl contenders. They have one of the better offenses in the league, and they have one of the better defenses in the league. Obviously, I mean, I know DJ, I believe he mentioned this morning or maybe yesterday, the one matchup he was most interested in watching was Corey Davis against Jair Alexander. Mm-hmm. I loved Jair Alexander coming out of college out of Louisville. And obviously he's been a top 5 corner in the league since he's entered the league. So having our number 1 receiver, Davis, going against him, I think that's great competition to have before the season starts, kind of just see what you can get away with, what you can't against a guy like of his caliber. Because as you know, in the AFC East, we go against some pretty damn good cornerbacks. Trey White, obviously you got Byron Jones, Xavier Howard. I don't know. How about the defensive player of the year from 2 years ago, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson? Like you have 2 from 2 teams and another top 5 corner from another team. So this is a good opportunity to see what he can get away with against an elite corner like Alexander, instead of, unfortunately, I have to say it, the middling talent of Bryce Hall and Bless Austin and those guys. Because obviously they're not even close to Alexander's floor right now. So I think it's just great to see matchups like that. Like Devontae Adams, I'm sure Bryce Hall is going to have some good matchups against him and try to see, like, all right, what do I have to do to cover a guy like him? And it's always going to help when you're going against better guys that are on your team. It's always going to help. And I think it's a great opportunity, as you mentioned. Like, we have Mikey LaFleur, they have Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur was the best man at Robert Saleh's wedding. Like, there is a relationship between these two teams, and I think it's going to be a great, well, obviously only one more day left. I think it's going to be a great one more day of practice before the preseason game on Saturday.
Yeah, let's touch on that matchup you kind of prefaced there. Devontae Adams against Bryce Hall sounded like it was maybe the marquee matchup of the whole of training camp today. With some really nice battles in man-on-man, and it's great for Bryce Hall because I think he was fantastic last year in cover 2 looks at the end of the year, but he was beaten a little bit in man coverage. He lost to Mike Williams a couple of times against the Chargers. Just to see him go out there and go one-on-one against Devontae Adams today, who's a top 5 receiver in the league, it's a huge win for him to get that experience. But not only that, to play really well, Clay.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's going against someone of that talent is only going to help you because you can kind of see what you thought you can get away with, you might not be able to get away with against a guy like this. And it'll kind of change your mentality on things and how you go about certain things from play to play. So, no, I'm really excited about that one. And then obviously we hit on the Jair Alexander one. And then the Zadarius Smith going against, whether it's Becton or Morgan Moses or George Fant, like that's another one because Zadarius Smith, he's gotten double-digit sacks the last 2 years. Or I think he was just under double digits last year, but he was still a great edge rusher for them last year. And it's just, they have some really good talent. And not only that, I want to get away from the individual players, but just the team itself. Like, you get to see what a Super Bowl contending team looks like. Like on a, well, obviously it's not like a daily basis. You only do it two times before game day, but like you actually get to see what they practice like and what they look like and what they do. You get to speak to them, have conversations with them. Rather than only compete, like you get to see what they're actually doing that makes them a Super Bowl contender and not a 2-win team like we have. So I'm excited that they had this opportunity, and obviously next week it's slightly different going against Philadelphia. It's pretty much the opposite end of the spectrum, but no, it's gonna be. I think it's very good for this young Jets team to go against practice with a team like the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. I agree. And I'm looking forward to seeing the game on Saturday afternoon because, it's going to be a step up from the Giants. Hopefully the Packers will play a couple of starters. We'll see how it all shakes out. But it would be really cool to see the Jets have an opportunity to play at least a couple of guys. Not sure if Jordan Love will play yet. He's been sitting out a little bit with his shoulder injury. So that could be interesting to see what kind of quarterback play we get because obviously Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be taking the field. So you'd like to see them get tested by at least Jordan Love. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but we'll see how that all shakes out. Clay, To wrap up, I kind of wanted to just look at training camp as a whole now. And we've now seen 2.5 weeks of camp. We've seen a preseason game. Who are the guys that have surprised you the most and maybe have jumped out to you when you thought that wouldn't be the case heading into training camp?
Bryce Huff. I think that's pretty like an obvious answer. I know that's what a lot of people are thinking, but I mean, I actually really liked him, and we had him, as we mentioned before, we got him as a UDFA last year. I actually had a 4th round grade on him in going into that draft. So the fact that we got him as a free agent, I was like so psyched, and actually even more psyched that he actually made the team. And then obviously in this year, this first preseason game, he gets 2 sacks. Like, he's showing up right away, and this is not a team that, like, obviously we have not had a sack artist on this team in quite a while. So getting a guy that has that potential, I'm not saying that he's capable of getting double digits, but I think he has the potential of possibly being that. You never know. It's nice to see. I really love when we can finally find these diamonds in the rough. When was the last UDFA we had? Robbie Anderson and Snacks Harrison.
Yeah,
I think those are the only 2 that really come to mind in the last decade or so. So maybe Bryce Huff can kind of be on that next, on that list of next great UDFAs, or maybe not great, but just good UDFA signings for the New York Jets. But yeah, he's been killing it so far.
Yeah, Javelin Guidry, another undrafted free agent from that class as well. He's a guy that stood out to me. I mean, we talked about how he was effective again the other night. He's had a really good camp. He might be keeping our guy Michael Carter II off the field early. He's a guy that's definitely stood out to me. And then I think the running back room in general has surprised me. I've been shocked by Tevin Coleman and that he actually has burst again. We didn't get to see him because he didn't rest because of personal reasons on Saturday night. But Ty Johnson looked really, really good. Ty Johnson looked explosive the other day. That didn't surprise me. But Lamarcus Joyner had another couple of nice runs. He had the touchdown. He bounced out to his left. Florida Gator actually doing something for the New York Jets. Yep. It's incredible. I can't believe it after the edge talent we've gone to a couple of times. But yeah, P. Ryan has surprised me. I think the running back room has been a shock to me because I was a little worried about that coming into the season.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that they would be they wouldn't just have one running back to rely on. We knew it was going to be a running back by committee. And the fact that not just one, not just 2, but like 3, 4 of them are actually practicing well. It's good to see. I mean, it's not just Michael Carter. We all assumed Michael Carter would be easily the first running back on this team because the running game just was non-existent last year. Tevin Coleman's coming from San Fran where he averaged less than 2 yards a carry last year. So it just seemed we have no one outside of Michael Carter who we just drafted, but we literally might have 4 guys on this team that actually make a contribution in the running game. And I think Ty Johnson, to be honest, I feel like he actually might get the majority of the snaps. I don't know what it is. I think they really liked him last year. Obviously, different coaching staff, but I know Joe Douglas liked him last year. He's having a good camp so far, and he might be the most explosive out of the 4 options that's currently on the roster right now.
Yeah. Well, here's what I want to leave the show. These are my takeaways from the last week, Clay. This is what I've got for you. Number 1, let's not overreact to practice. Mekhi Becton's going to be fine. He played well in the game. Let's keep everything in context. Number 2, the Packers are better than the New York Jets right now. I know that might surprise some people, but the Green Bay Packers are a better football team than the Jets. Let's use this experience. Number 3, Carl Lawson is going to have 10 sacks this year. There's not a doubt in my mind that if he's healthy, he's going to have 10-plus sacks. And him and Quinn Williams are going to do disgusting things to the left-hand side of offensive line. So I can't wait to see how that unfolds. But overall, yeah, go for it.
I want to ask you one quick question. It's rapid fire, whatever comes to your head first. Who gets 10 sacks first, Carl Lawson or Quinn Williams?
Carl Lawson. I think, look, I love Quinn Williams more than any other person alive, just about. But I think being an edge rusher, going against tackles from that wide 9 position, Quinn Williams is probably going to see more double teams on the interior just from the way the formation is. So I think Carl Lawson probably gets there first, but they've got a really, really good shot to both get to 10 sacks, I think, which I can't believe I'm saying because they haven't had a double-digit sack guy since Mo Wilkerson in 2015.
Yeah, before that big contract that just went to complete waste. I think I could have provided more with that money.
It's incredible. Well, another guy that got paid was Jamal Adams. What were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was surprised to see one that actually got done when it did, because it seemed like they were in a stalemate, and two, $17.5 million a year. Like, that is absurd. I mean, I know he's more than just a safety. Like, he actually can get double-digit sacks, and like he provides a lot to the defense. But one, you gotta remember, like, the Seattle defense still sucked with him on the field last year. Yep. And he's getting paid $2 million more than the highest paid safety. Like I said, I understand he does more than just play safety, but that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, $17.5 million. I thought 15. All right, like I can deal with that, because isn't that what CJ Mosley's making?
Around 15.5 a year. Yeah, correct.
So if he made like 15, I guess 15. I think it was like 15.3 is the highest paid safety. So I guess if he was like 15.5, just I guess maybe to 16. Okay, but even if it, like, that's still $1.5 million more than 16. So yeah, I think it was kind of an overpay, considering that they've neglected the offensive line for Russell Wilson all these years. And you're putting it into a position that honestly just doesn't really quite matter at the end of the day. But I guess I was shocked, to say the least.
Yeah, here's my thoughts on the trade. On the deal and the size of it. I think the reason you pay linebackers like Darius Leonard and I was about to say Kurt Warner, and Fred Warner, the reason you pay those guys is because the differential in coverage and in ability between the top three guys, and Bobby Wagner included in that group, and then to a middling linebacker, is enormous. If you look at the safety position, I think it's one of the strongest in football right now. Even though some of these guys are free safeties, Jesse Bates and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Mark May, these are guys that, you know, Carlos Hyde, help, give me a break. What's his freaking name? Hyde, the safety from Micah Hyde. Thank you. You've got a ton of guys.
Yeah, we got a bunch.
There's so many, and they're not names that some NFL fans would go, wow, what an elite player. But the difference between a Jamal Adams caliber player, not the stylistic kind of comparison, but the difference between him and those guys compared to Warner and, I don't know, Neville Hewitt, is just enormous. And that's why I think they should be getting paid. And I was a little surprised by the Jamal Adams deal, but we'll see how it plays out.
But yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it also has to do because he can get double-digit sacks for you.
Yeah.
He can't, which is crazy to say that a safety can do that for you. But I guess he's more than just a safety, even though he's not great against the pass. I think we saw plenty of highlights last year. Or I should say clips, maybe not his highlights.
Yep.
But we saw many clips last year where he was getting beat in against tight ends, like, over and over and over again. But then you'll see clips of him just dominating a tight end in pass protection, or dominating a running back, and just getting him for a sack like that. So he provides a lot for you, but like, I don't think he doesn't change the defense. The Jets defenses weren't good with him. The Seattle defense wasn't good with him. As great as he is, and I maybe I'm saying this more because of how he ended things in New York, but like, as great as he is as an individual player, he does not change a whole defense, which is why I think $17.5 million for that is just not worth it at the end of the day.
And the last thing on the trade for me is they got pressured into signing him. They had to sign Jamal Adams after giving away 2 deals. They were trapped. They had no other option. What are you going to do? Franchise tag him and have him not turn up to camp next year and not turn up to camp this year and maybe even sit out of games? They were trapped. They had no other option.
You can't say like, oh, we traded 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick and a safety to get you, but you are not worth any money. Like, we don't want you after this. Like, no, of course they were going to sign him. They had to sign him, had literally no choice. So they kind of dug their grave there, and maybe that's why he got the 17.5, because it wasn't Jamal like trying to go for 20.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, so maybe they just met in the middle. I don't know, but yeah, I think we can stop talking about Jamal Adams.
Yeah, I think we're done. And guys, I think we're done for the show today. Play Like a Jet Live. Apologies, DJ on Central Time. He missed it. Obviously, there's the hour differential there. So we'll make sure we get him on the show in the next couple of weeks. The thing you don't want to miss, though, is on Saturday night or Saturday late afternoon, Clay and I will be on for a post-game show, wrapping up the Jets versus Packers with U Stadium Live. Make sure you check it out. We had Scott from Play Like a Jet, the king of Play Like a Jet, was on with us last week. We might even get Nick and Frankie and some of these guys on. So make sure you join us after the game. Turn off your TV, jump onto YouTube or Twitch or wherever you find your things. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to U Stadium, where you can find every single episode of Play Like a Jet Live, a ton of other great content, the Sports Desk with Splash. You've got Timeout with those guys, with Nick and Frankie and with Bree. So make sure you're checking them out. And Clay, make sure you're checking us out on YouTube too, because we're getting some momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that first post game was a hit for you guys, and you enjoyed it, because I mean, who really wants to watch the guys over on SMY anymore? I mean, technically, I can't even watch the guys on SMY being down in Florida. So yeah, tune into us. We'll definitely hit everything that you want to hear. More so, not even just from like a corporate perspective, but from a fan's perspective. Like, you will hear from us. What you see is what you get. Like, we don't have an agenda or anything. We're gonna give you everything from our perspective, and I think it's enjoyable and easy to listen to.
Yeah, for sure. So make sure you tune in to us post-game U Stadium Live. We're going to be there on Saturday night. Tune in. Thanks again for joining us. Play Like a Jet Live with U Stadium. We'll see you next week. That's all from myself and Clay. Take care.